During the years immediately following the creation of the 135th Street Gangster Crip Gang, the willingness of its members to commit crimes for monetary gain and street credibility had many negative repercussions. The east side of Hawthorne became a place where drugs were sold openly, gang-related shootings often occurred, and residents felt unsafe due to the abundance of apartment buildings whose owners welcomed residents that depended on government assistance. The socioeconomic status of the people in that area continued to decline. That was because people who lived their lives dependent upon the welfare system viewed Hawthorne as a desirable place to live. Upon moving to Hawthorne, they brought with them a lack of interest in learning, a weak work ethic, and a dearth of self-esteem that caused them to take pleasure in making life difficult for others. As the 135th Street Gangster Crip Gang grew, its members engaged in acts that resulted in them suffering. Jinx had been shot on 2 separate occasions, and he has served several years in prison for an armed robbery. He was unemployed, still lived in the same location with his mother, and he sold small amounts of marijuana and crack cocaine for sustenance. Flex was murdered by a blood who sought revenge after Flex had beaten him during a physical altercation. Meanie was serving a life sentence in prison for murdering the blood who killed Flex. Goose worked a legitimate job as a truck driver, yet he continued to maintain his ties to the 135th Street Gangster Crips and was willing to commit violent acts against its enemies whenever necessary. Despite the unproductive lifestyles of the 135th Gangster Crip Gang founders, they served as role models for some of the children who lived in Moneta Gardens. In an apartment building on Lamoli Avenue, across from Miss Annie's home, lived a 12-year-old boy named Anton Edwards. His mother, Jasmine Edwards, had given birth to him when she was 16 years old. Afterwards, she chose to drop out of high school. She then elected to party and preferred to live a life of fun over being a mother, which led to her becoming addicted to crack cocaine. Her lifestyle rendered her unable to care for her son. That resulted in her mother, Bertha Edwards, opting to raise her grandson rather than allow him to become a ward of the state of California. Bertha had another daughter who had little to do with Bertha or Jasmine. She was married and successful and did not want to be burdened by the endless problems occurring in the lives of her mother and younger sister. It was admirable that many grandparents were willing to raise their grandchildren when their own offspring were incapable of caring for the children they created. But byproduct of the arrangement often meant that the grandchild was cared for but not raised. Although they were provided with food and clothing, their grandparents often failed to teach them values and the importance of education. That may have been the result of the grandparents having tired of raising children. However, the negligence of those grandparents created young people who contributed to the problems in society rather than being people whose actions would help to alleviate them. Anton was one of the aforementioned grandchildren. He was a troublesome child because nobody had taught him how to properly behave in society. Although Bertha would beat Anton mercilessly when he did something that she did not approve of, her method of discipline was unproductive. She spanked Anton because she had been disciplined in that matter by her parents, and she did not possess the sophistication needed to question the beatings. As such, she was unable to realize that spanking was a holdover from slavery, during which slave owners and overseers severely beat black slaves for perceived indiscretions. Rather than reject that abusive behavior, many black parents choose to beat their children for disobeying them. That often resulted in black youth becoming more violent than their white peers, whose ancestors were fortunate to not have been slaves in America. Reading was not valued in Bertha's home. She did not nourish any intellectual curiosity in Anton or supervise his homework because she felt it was the duty of the Hawthorne School District to educate her grandson. But because the district was responsible for teaching many other students, they could not focus their attention upon individual pupils. Therefore, at a young age, Anton developed the mindset that because his grandmother did not appear to care about his education, then neither would he. As a result, Anton's level of intelligence lagged behind that of his peers, whose parents closely monitored the instructions of their children. When children were not instilled with morals, they made their own determination about the importance of various aspects of life. If they were not taught that strength of character is what makes someone a good person, they believed the acquisition of material goods made them better than people who lacked what they had. Anton's grandmother spent money provided by the government for the care of her grandson on clothes, video games, and other material goods. Because of that, Anton began to consider himself superior to some of his peers whose parents were financially unable to purchase those items for their children. That created unnecessary conflict between Anton and others, which sometimes led to him being physically attacked by his peers for being arrogant. Without being taught the wisdom that is needed in order to possess confidence, Anton had low self-esteem. His lack of self-esteem was manifested by his antagonisms toward his peers who possessed less than he did. That was his way of fooling himself into thinking he was superior to them. The irony was that Anton was secretly jealous of his peers who either had stable families or were more intelligent than he was. His secret envy of others was a result of him not having known his father, being abandoned by his mother, and the failure of his grandmother to mentally nourish him. The actions of the 135th Street gangsters and other criminals in Moneta Gardens created a dangerous environment that offered many negative experiences for youth to observe. While playing outside as a child, Anton observed rampant drug dealing, fights, and on one occasion a murder. There was also a time when he was visiting a friend and a drug bust occurred. As they traded football cards in his friend's yard, members of the Hawthorne Police Department SWAT team ran past them on their way to serve a warrant on a home where drugs were being sold. Anton's immediate reaction was to run home to the security of his grandmother's apartment. And as he did that, he passed the house where the raid was occurring. He could have been killed if shooting had occurred. And on another occasion, Anton and some of his friends were playing in the front yard of his apartment building as several 135th Street gangsters loitered on the sidewalk approximately 50 yards away from them. At that time, Anton had the desire to purchase candy from 24/7, which was a convenience store that was part of a national chain of convenience stores. It was located on the corner of Lamole Avenue and 135th and was open every hour of every day of the year. Instead, Anton returned to his apartment for a reason that he was never able to explain. Within 3 minutes of entering his apartment, at least 7 gunshots were fired at the 135th Street Gangster Crips from a passing car. The parents of Anton's friends rushed to retrieve their children, and the shooting left 2 of the 135th Street gangsters with non-fatal injuries. Such occurrences were foreign to children who were raised in more affluent neighborhoods. Observing acts of violence was unhealthy for the developing mind of a child. It desensitized them to the reality that willfully harming others in situations other than self-defense was unproductive and intolerable in a society that operated according to the rule of law. As such, the incidents that Anton witnessed had a negative effect upon his psyche. Rather than possess the maturity to imagine life outside of the ghetto, Anton believed that his surroundings constituted all that he could achieve. Since his grandmother did not travel, Anton was unable to see more affluent areas and acquire the knowledge of those who operated within those areas. Anton believed that the trajectory of his life would be finding a place within the ghetto from which he could operate. He considered the manner in which 135th Street gangsters carried themselves attractive. That endeared him to a lifestyle filled with negativity, which would ultimately result in him succumbing to an undesirable fate. Anton's upbringing adequately prepared him to become a successful gangster. Man, that's sad.
You don't give a damn no more how low down you are, how funky you have become, how rotten you look in the eyes of the world. You don't give a damn no more. You have lost your sense of shame. So you're no longer human beings. You've become a race of animals. I'm your brother, damn it. And I love you. But I'll be damned if I'm going to stand by and watch you destroy yourself and our people and our future with your foolishness. The Bloods and the Crips and the gangster disciples and the Rookins and the vice lords, soon they will become the army of God and the army of righteousness. And we're going to put a stop to your foolishness. You're not going to misrepresent us to the world. We're tired of it, and we're not going to take it no more. We got to rise up, black man, and make a clean community and enforce righteousness. You're being set up. So when an unfair judgment comes down and you go to burning and you take your little pop guns with your false sense of invincibility and you roll out, then white folks gonna roll in. And since you love blood, they're going to make you shed your own blood. And you will drink your own blood. And the Bible says you will be drunk with your own blood as though you were drinking sweet wine. These aren't the days of wine and roses. This is the day of the end of filth and indecency and the destruction of us as a people. Wounds. Every human being today is a wounded soul. Then what is healing? Healing is to make healthy, to make whole or sound, to restore to health and to free from ailment. To repair is to heal. To reconcile is to heal. To settle the differences is to heal. To free from evil, to cleanse, to purify is to heal. To effect a cure is to heal. But you can't have a healing without medicine, and you can't have medicine without a doctor. So if the whole world needs a healing, where's the medicine and who is the doctor?